Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Dynamics 365 Tech Talk. Today's topic is Deliverables Deep Dive Integrations. My name is Mandy Tovez, and I will be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this session through Microsoft Teams. This session is being recorded on behalf of the Microsoft Corporation. When you join this event, your name and email address may be viewable by session organizers. By joining, you're agreeing to this experience. The recording will be made available in the Tech Talks Community Dynamics page in the upcoming weeks. If you have questions for presenters or need support, please use the Q&A panel located on the right side of your screen. If you wish your name not to be visible to organizers or session participants, please post your questions anonymously. Our presenters will be responding to your questions when the time allows throughout the session, and we will also have a live segment at the end of the presentation. Reminder, if you have any issues, can't view the screen, please use the Q&A panel to let us know. Thank you. Now I'll turn it over to our presenters. Today, Priyanka Sinha and Leo Salomons. Priyanka, over to you.
Hey, thanks everyone. So I'm Priyanka Sinha, a FastTrack solution architect, and very happy to have you all here. We welcome you. So here's our agenda today. We are going to start with a high-level overview of what integrations are in the context of business process catalog, where they sit in the structure, why they matter. Then we will get into integration patterns and technologies. Not a deep dive on choosing the right pattern, but specifically how different patterns affect the way you document your work items. The core of today's session is really about documenting integration details, what makes a good integration work item, what should the title say, what fields do you need to fill out. We will cover the rules, do's, don'ts, and give you a clear framework. Then we will move to two demos showcasing Azure DevOps, like both a standard dual right integration and creating a custom integration from scratch. After that, Leo will take over and show you the same concept in Mavim, including how to use the integration template. And then we will wrap up with the resources and next step, links to everything you need to get started. So let's start. So what are the integration in the context of business process catalog? If you have attended previous Tech Talks in this series, you will know that a catalog has a structure. Let me quickly orient you where integration live within that structure. So this is the catalog structure at a high level, 4 interconnected pillars: objectives, business processes, deliverables, and the delivery plan. The key thing is to orient on here is that integration live in the deliverable tree. That's where we are focused today. The deliverable tree has a hierarchy, functional areas at the top, then sub areas, then category type like integration, workflow, report, and then finally your specific work items. So your integration work items sit at the category level under the relevant process area. So now let's zoom into the deliverable tree specifically. Here is the deliverable tree in a bit more detail. You can see the levels, functional areas like finance, HR, customer experience at the top. Then we have sub areas underneath, and then your deliverable type categories called, let's say, integration, workflow, report, and so on. Your specific integration work items land right here. The important takeaway is that integration work items need to land in the right place under the appropriate process area. So that traceability is what makes your solution blueprint reviewable and your testing comprehensive. You can also add custom work items, which is exactly what we are going to do in the demo. Let's look specifically how integration fit into this flow. In this slide, this shows the end-to-end flow of how an integration goes from business input to a documented work item. Think of as a four-step. Step one, business input. This is what you are starting with: architecture diagram, interface specification, let's say vendor API documentation, data flow diagrams. This is raw material your project team is going to work from. Then step two is integration itself. This is what you're defining, documented interface with endpoints, authentication, data mapping, and error handling. Uh, Notice I said interface, not system. One product integration might have multiple interfaces. And then next step three, BPC mapping. You take that integration and map it to best fit L2 process areas, one work item per interface. This is critical. If a single product integration has three different interfaces, you create three work items. You can absolutely make a parent work item with a sub item underneath if that helps your team to organize. That's up to you. But from a success by design and fast track perspective, the bare minimum is that every single interface is documented as its own work item. Now, next step is step four, ADO and Maven. That work item lands in the Azure DevOps or Maven with the interface model, technology, and performance details fully captured. So, what actually goes into one of these work items? Let's talk about what makes a good one. Now, every integration work item should capture four essentials. First thing is document the interface, define your endpoints, your authentication method, and your data mapping. A reviewer should be able to understand exactly what data moves where and how it gets there. Second, link to the process area. Associate every integration with the best fit L2 or L3 process area. This gives you traceability. When something breaks in the production, you can trace it back to the business process. When you're planning testing, you know which integrations are in scope for which process. Third one is make it specific. This is where team often falls short. Include retry logic, what happens when the call fails, document failure notification, who gets alerted, define fallback strategies if the integration is down, what is the manual workaround. And the fourth one is performance. You need to validate the performance, test under peak load, document your expected volume and latency requirements, and your security constants. If you are processing 10,000 records, let's say nightly, that need to be captured. Now, let's look at the types of integrations you will encounter. So at a high level, integration falls into two categories, real-time and non-real-time, and the pattern you choose affect how you document the work item. Real-time integrations are your synchronous API and dual write scenarios. And as you know, dual write is the most common one we see. That's your bidirectional sync between finance and operation and customer engagement. For example, customer and master data syncing between F&O and CE. Another real-time example would be a REST API call to, let's say, LinkedIn Sales Navigator that fires when user takes action. Now, next one is non-real-time integration. So those are scheduled and kind of middleware scenarios. A classic example is nightly batch job that syncs inventory data between, let's say, D365 SCM and SAP, or Power Automate Flow that handles chatbot escalation from one system to another. Now, I want to be clear about something. This talk isn't about how to choose between these patterns. We have dedicated tech talks on those integration architecture pattern. If you need guidance, you can go and check. Today is about how document them properly, regardless of which pattern you have chosen. The pattern determines what fields you fill in. Like, is it synchronous, asynchronous? What is the frequency? What is the expected latency? So those details change based on the pattern, but the requirement to document them doesn't change. Now let's get into documentation rules. So this is one of the most important slide in this deck, because if you see, here are the documentation rules. So first one is to complete interface name. Your title must identify both systems and the data flow, not like very generic, let's say SAP integration, which is not going to give much information. The title should tell me what's moving between which system and ideally how. The second point is blueprint ready. So a reviewer should be able to evaluate the interface model from the work item alone. They should not be open a separate document, schedule a call with your architect, or guess at what this integration says or what this integration does. So that is very important point. And third one is it should be fully documented, include endpoints, authentication, method data mapping, error handling, volume for performance targets. So yeah, yes, all of it, all are very critical for any integration or interface. If you don't know these details yet, that's fine. Create the work item with what you know. Mark it as requiring further definition. But the expectation is that by the time you are in build, these are complete. And the next one is testable. A consultant should be able to write an integration test directly from the work item. If they can't, it is not documented well enough. And then one interface per item. I said earlier, but yeah, repeating, because creating one item per interface for traceability is really important. And the sixth one is include direction and frequency. It is, let's say, inbound, outbound, bidirectional, or is it real time, scheduled, or event driven? So this is essential context. Now let me show you what good and bad look like. So here in this slide, if you see, the title is the so basically based on the title or looking at the title, a reviewer should understand the interface without opening the description. So let's look at the example here. For an example, good title says sync customer master data from ACP to D365 FNO via nightly batch. In one line, I know the data, the source, the target, and the frequency, right? Another one could be real-time inventory sync between D365 SCM and, let's say, WMS via REST API. Again, we know based on title, like what is going to be system, pattern, direction, and everything, right? Now, uh, it is clear, specific, and pattern identified. Now the bad titles, so you have here more examples. We'll move to bad titles, and I see these all the time in project reviews. So we just mentioned SAP integration, which one? So there is no further information. You probably have 15 SAP integrations, right? Warehouse sync, what need to be synced, like between what system, what is the direction, right? So again, same problem. We are not getting proper information by reading the title. So here, if you see, The difference is in good and bad. Work item title is kind of night and day. And when a FastTrack architect reviews your solution blueprint, they need to evaluate each interface. If your title says SAP integration, they are going to come back with questions. If it says, let's say, sync customer master data from SAP to D365 FNO via nightly batch, they can immediately assess whether your approach is sound. Right. So let's talk about where these integration land in the catalog. Now that we know what good documentation look like, let's talk about adding integrations to the business process catalog, how to place them correctly and link them to the processes. So here, if you see, this is a success by design principle. Link every integration to the business processes it supports. Why does it matter? First, avoid isolation. If an integration exists without process context, you will miss dependencies during testing. That order sync you built, it depends on the customer master being current. If you don't link them to the related processes, nobody catches that gap until UAT or was production. And then link to L2 or L3 process areas. Map every integration to the best fit process area. This enables impact analysis. If we are changing the order process, which integrations are affected, and then it enables the testing planning, which integrations need to be validated, and when we test this process end to end. And then third one is test coverage. So validate the end to end data flow, and integration isn't tested in isolation. It is tested as part of business process. Make sure your test plan covers the full chain of dependencies. And the fourth one is solution blueprint. So document the interface model, the technology choice, and the performance considerations. This is what gets reviewed in your Success by Design workshop. Now, all integrations are not all the integrations are created equal. Let's talk about standard versus custom. So there are two categories you will work with in BPC: standard integration and custom integration. Standard integration are your dual write maps, so that you will get as part of standard integration. The BPC already includes this as a predefined integration work items. They're there. You have to start from there. Adopt before building custom. Before your team design a custom integration to sync data between FNO and C, check the catalog. There might already be a dual write map that covers your scenario. Review what is in scope, mark it as in scope or out of scope for your project, and move on. Because you might not need each and every mapping. So based on the scoping, you have to update it. Now, custom integrations are for everything not covered by dual write, and there will be plenty legacy system interface, third-party vendor APIs, middleware orchestration, or Power Automate flows. So for these, you need to create custom work items. And the documentation standard is the same, whether it is custom or standard. Like you need to have endpoints, authentication, data mapping, error handling, performance requirements, and then one work item per interface, whether it's an API call, a batch job, middleware integration, or a Power Automate flow. So the demo I'm about to show is going to cover both. You will see how to review standard you will write map and how create a custom integration work item from scratch. Now, before we jump into the demo, let me give you a few practical tips. So here, a few of the tips are like one interface equal to one work item, as we have already mentioned, but it is the most common mistake we see. Teams create one work item called, for example, SAP integration and dump everything in. Do not do that. Each interface gets its own work item for traceability, testability, and reviewability. Start with standard. Before you create a custom integration, check what is already in BPC. The dual right maps are there. Review them, scope them, and build custom when you need to fill gaps. Um, and then document for blueprint. Every integration work item should be blueprint ready. A reviewer, whether that's a FastTrack architect, your project lead, or a new consultant joining the team, should be able to understand the interface from the work item alone. And finally, link to the process area. Map every integration to its L2 or L3 process area. This is how you maintain traceability from business requirement through to implementation and testing. So let's see this in action. I have a pre-recorded demo. Will walk you through exactly how, like what we have discussed, how to do in Azure DevOps. So basically in this demo, we are going to show two scenarios in Azure DevOps. First, I will show you a standard dual write integration, how it is already exists in the BPC, what fields are populated, and how you review and scope it. Second, I will create a custom integration from scratch, filling in all the fields we have been talking about today. So, yep, let's go to demo. So if you see here, this is Azure DevOps, and here you can see 4 trees, what we have been talking about: success by design, delivery plan, objective, deliverables, and BPC. And under BPC, you have all these process areas, and under that you have processes like we have talked about. And then, so I think you are already aware of that, but today our focus is on deliverables. So let's go to deliverables, and we'll go, let's say, take example of operations. And here, if you see, let's say we are taking item management and product information management. Here, if you see, we have integrations folders. And then these are the existing out-of-box dual write maps, which is available for product information management. Now, let's take an example for the first one, default order setting. So this will be existing when you are using BPC. And if you see here in the first page, you have like description about this particular mapping. And then if you see here, like you have responsibility, like who will be responsible for this particular integration, customer partner, what is the program areas, what is the role type? Is it like functional, governance, or technical? And then responsible role. Again, we can have contributor, and then you have to specify whether it is in scope or out scope, because not necessarily everything is in scope. And then what do you think, whether it is, what is the complexity, medium, large? So that also you can define. And then you can add all the references. Let's say you are going to use Marvin, or let's say partner has some details, internal references. So all those you can add, right? And then additional details about the module, what is the menu path, menu item name. So all level of technical details also you can add here. And then you have those technical level details about the interface, like what is going to be technology, mode, and then what is the validation method you are going to add, model, whether it is dual write, hybrid, file-based, whatever, and then middleware you can add. If it is dual write, what is going to be initial data sync mechanism, and then you also can update PCAR volume. daily volume, hourly transaction. Very important entity details also you can add here. So this is already populated because this is standard dual right map. And then what is the current, where currently it fits in application lifecycle, whether it is then dev, test, or which other phase. So if you see, you can add all the details here. You have all the details here. Now we are going to create a new integration, custom integration. And please see the title here. It gives me good information, like we have to sync products from PLM to Dynamics via nightly batch. And let's add all those responsibility. Let's say it is partners' responsibility, ownership, which program areas it comes into. So we can add whatever is the relevant here. And then what is the role type? We say it is technical, responsible role. So yeah, whatever relevant is there, we can add. In this case, let's say it is data architect, and then we can have contributors also. Now scoping is it is a custom, it is in scope, that's why we are adding. So let's update that as well. And then estimate. So uh, we have to add the numbers here. I have added hours, that is why it is giving me this error. So let's remove that. Yeah, and then very important, we have to link it properly. So I'm going to link it to the same integration folder for which we had shown that dual right map. So in that only, I'm adding a new custom integration. If we don't add, it is going to be orphan, and we do not know where it belongs, and it will be definitely missed. So do not forget to link it to the proper business process and folder. And yeah, let's remove this R because that is not, it just accept the numbers. Right, so we have all the details here, and then we can add the references. Let's say if there are some documentation or we are using Marvin, so all those references we can give here. And then we can also provide the application details, modules, all those required details we can provide, which is very important. And then menu path, menu item name. If it is a new integration, definitely we will have some kind of menu path and item from how to open, where it is going to be used. And then we can add the application information, like which application it is, finance and operation, SCM, and then we can also select the area. So let's add let's say finance and operations here. And then products, it could be, let's say, we are going to use SCM. Right? So it is, we know that from like which business process area it is part of. And then if we have, let's say, if you want to add more details about the functional design, technical design, we have to add. And then wherever it is in application lifecycle, whether it is in development, testing, or it's in prod, so that details we need to provide. And then all the technical integration related details, like what is the technology we are going to use? Is it like third party or the other interface? What is the mode? So let's say here we are saying that it is going to be recurring batch, and what kind of validation is required. So yeah, relevant validation, we have to update it. And then other details about interface model, middleware, what kind of initial data sync mechanism we are going to use. And then what is going to be peak hour volume, average daily volume. So maybe initially you won't have these data, but ensure that by the time of development you have, so that you can use it for your testing, performance testing. And then all the entity level details, like from the source system, what is the source system, what is the source data entity, similarly, what is the target and target system and the entity. And you can see you have the proper linking here. And you can add the attachment like any other work item. Save it. Now we have this new integration deliverables created. And let's see the link. Is it like into the proper link or not? Yeah, so it is added under product information management integration. We have all these existing out-of-box integration deliverables like that. You have the sync product from PLM also. So like you have seen both options, both approaches where you have existing out-of-box dual write maps, as well as you also saw that how you create a new work item with what kind of details you should provide. All right, so now I want to hand this over to Leo, who is going to show you the same concepts in Marvin. Leo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Priyanka. Hello, everybody. Again, as a quick introduction, my name is Leo Salomons. I'm the head of value engineering for the Mavim Americas organization. And in today's Tech Talk, I'm going to walk you through pretty much the same concept that Priyanka showed us with the integrations, but then from the Mavim application and Mavim platform side, from within the business process catalog. I also have a pre-recorded demo that I'm going to walk you through. So if we can move to the next slide and start the demo. Okay, so what we're seeing here is the front end of Mavim, the portal, and you will recognize the elements of the business process catalog, all the end-to-end processes. But as mentioned, today's focus is on the deliverables, which we're going to go into, and specifically the integrations. Now I'm going to grab the same example that Priyanka walked us through. That is going to be the product information management component, for which we're going to look at the integrations. And as we go in, we start seeing the information captured in Mavim. We see here the list of out-of-the-box predisposed available integrations, and we're going to focus on the dual write map for default order settings. So when we go in this particular integration, we see here the same details captured, all of the information required for both the Mavim to ADO synchronization. We see some Azure DevOps information, but we also see the other elements that we recognized in the fields of the work item on the ADO side. For instance, the integration details, also the entity details, for instance, speaking about source and target systems. And so all of the fields and metadata required to both capture the details of the integration, as we saw per the best practices, as well as populates to ADO. Now, focusing on ADO, we see here through this link that we have the ability to now navigate from Mavim to this very corresponding component on the ADO side. We saw the example that Priyanka just walked us through, which was in a different ADO project, but you're seeing the exact same element in this project that is synced with Mavim. And in the same fashion that we saw in Priyanka's presentation, we have the ability to either then fill in these fields that correspond to this particular work item. We're seeing the interface technology as part of the integration details and all of these other items. Or we can fill in, and we'll see that example in a minute, we can fill these or pre-fill these in from the Mavim side during those interactions and have these be populated and then synchronized back to ADO to be pre-populated. Now, with that, I want to walk you through a second example. We're going to go to, in this case, customer service. And we are going to now go through the example of creating one of these integrations through the available template. As we go to customer service integration, we're seeing here, if you scroll down, that contrary to the other example, there are no out-of-the-box integrations available. So we're going to create a custom one. And for that, we're going to use this integration template that is available in the catalog. And we're going to do that through the module improve that you're seeing here from Mavim. Here's where you do your edits. You can recognize the business process catalog with the different trees. And just like in the other example, we're going to focus on the deliverables tree. And we're going to grab the example out of customer engagement, of course, with customer service. And in here, as we expand the folder, we're going to go to the deliverable related to integrations. And opening this up, just like we saw in the portal, there are no out-of-the-box integrations, but rather the template, which we are now going to copy and use as a basis to define our own custom integration. So now that we've copied it, we're going to go ahead and essentially paste that copy right in the same section, just underneath it. And once we see that copy appear, it's right here, we can now go ahead and select it and start editing that template to become the integration that we want to define. So for this example, as we start changing it, we've selected an example of a computer telephony integration. So it's going to be based on Genesys Cloud, CTI, which is going to integrate to D365 through it's a connector that uses REST API. And so to adhere to the naming convention best practices, we make sure that both source and target, as well as mechanism, are captured in the naming. And once we've done that, we can make sure that we can start filling in, as you can see here, those very same metadata fields that correspond to the work item fields, right? Starting with it's a custom integration, and so we set that to custom. And as we're doing that, we're seeing that the changes that we're doing are being saved. And we have now the name properly reflected. We can see it on the left-hand side as well, adhering to the proper naming standard. And so we can now proceed with the work that we started with a moment ago, which is to complete the integration details metadata, right? We set it to custom for the custom integration. We can look at the application family. We can look at some of the reference information as well. For this example, we're going to dive into the scoping and the integration details. We're going to set this one as in scope. And then we can start walking through the integration details, selecting third party as a technology. For the interface mode, we are going to go with event driven. We are going to select for the validation mode this particular value, and for the interface model API based as its REST API. And we can continue with the filling in of the real-time sync as the is that particular field value. Now, in terms of source and target, the source, as we mentioned, is the Genesys Cloud CTI. So we're going to put that value in here. And the source data, it's API. So the business object being called is a conversation within Genesys Cloud or interaction or voice call. So we can put that value here. As the target system, we have the D365 customer service, of course. And so we can go ahead and populate that here. With as the target entity, the business object being called is the phone call activity. And so we can populate that here as well. In terms of the application lifecycle in the SDLC, we can say we moved up to the test environment. And so we set the values here for test. And with that, we make sure that all of the fields that we know we have a value for, and we can then go ahead and save these values. And as we see, they will be committed on the Mavim side. We see that reflected on the left-hand side in the name and on the right-hand side with all of the information details. And so now we've captured our custom integration from within Mavim. And at this point, we have the choice to, even at this level, to relate it to a corresponding business process in Mavim and pass that information through synchronization down to ADO, or the information as is captured, can also be synchronized with ADO and then further updated on that side. So with that, we've come to the end of this section of the demonstration, and I want to hand it back over to Priyanka.
Hey, thanks, Leo. So here we have resources and recommendations. Here you can see all the Microsoft BPC resources. I would recommend bookmarking these and use it. You will see a lot of good information and useful information here. And here are the Mavim resources. We have a free preview available. So if you haven't tried the BPC in Mavim yet, you can start it today at no cost. Yeah, and then Mandy, you want to take over?
Yes, thank you, Priyanka. So please join us next week for our Tech Talk at the same time. We will be covering extending the Microsoft Business Process Catalog in Mavim with your industry expertise. If you'll go to the next slide, Priyanka. And just as always, when we have these Tech Talks, we really value your feedback. I've just posted in the Q&A panel the survey link, but please take a moment if you have a few minutes to fill out our survey. We really appreciate your feedback. All right, not seeing anything come through. So thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Priyanka and Leo, for taking us through this presentation on integrations. We hope to see you all next week at our Tech Talk on extending the catalog with for your SDCs. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.